Jellyfish justice, the young Turks. Jellyfish justice, like the fireworks. We're a jellyfish tornado, we're a jellyfish storm. Cry out jellyfish justice, and the jellyfish swarm. Jellyfish justice, the harbor, the land. Jellyfish justice, taking a stand. Enemies beware, might is always there. The young Turks is more than just the hair.
Welcome. I want to play that because I need a little boost today. I need a little laughter. Jellyfish Justice. Thank you, Melissa, for getting that to us. I was going to play Boozy Beauty, her epic takedown of the 2020, but there's so much profanity in that one. I just didn't want to kick it off with that because I'm already fired up. But I would definitely think people should check that out on Twitter. Aiden posted it on Twitter. Check out the Boozy Beauty just rundown of 2020. It was very good. Very good. Thank you for Jellyfish Justice tonight. I had to turn off my phone. I'm like so amped up. I had to do what I tell everyone else to do when they call into the show. We might even take calls tonight. If we do take calls, turn off your phone when you call in. So we don't have to say it 5 times like the last show, which was awesome. I loved all your calls. So maybe we will take calls tonight. We got a special show tonight. It's myself with the big guest, the big guest. Everyone knows you're having him back on the show, returning once again. Criminal defense attorney Mark Bederow is here. He's in the green room. I'm going to bring him up in 1 second. One thing I just wanted to say, because we're going to get to a lot. I want to talk about the Karen Read juror interview, another Turtle Boy interview. Excellent work, Turtle Boy. TBD Daily News. Check that out. Read that article if you haven't. We're definitely going to talk about Michael Proctor's phone extractions and obviously the 2020 thing. The thing I'm going to say is what Bederow said right from the beginning. He said that Karen Read or any defendant, he would really caution them from going on TV like she did for this 2020 special. And boy, do I hear that now. Because I've talked to a lot of people this weekend that have not been following the case, who are not McAlberts. They're not free Karen Read people. They're not us. They're not interested in it. They don't know all the details, but they watched that stupid 2020 hit piece. I call it a hit piece. There were some good things that did humanize Karen a little bit. It does put the word out so more people find Turtle Boy and our show and other shows online and find out the real truth on this. But at the same time, there are a lot of dim people out there who are just going to watch that and go on it. And they came back, all of them, and said, I think she's guilty. I think they're corrupt. I think the cops are corrupt, but I think she's done something wrong too. That's what I heard all weekend from these people. And that's the risk when you go on one of these shows. They did not show all the defense. They didn't show nearly enough. And I think my message for Karen Read is be very careful. I would not be doing these shows. If you're going to do anything, do Turtle Boy. Turtle Boy is safer. And it's what you need. You need to inspire the people behind you. That's what Turtle Boy does. And he will reach more people if you go on his show. But it were the right message. Like this 2020 stuff is turning some people off. And I'm telling you, some of those people are going to be in that jury pool. If there is another trial, and that's all it hinges on too. Will there actually be another trial? Last show that we had the police officers on and Mark Bederow, all 3 of them said they don't think there will be a retrial. I still think there will be because I think Morrissey is that crazy. Let's bring up the expert. Let's bring up the guy everyone's been waiting for. My rant is over. Attorney Mark Bederow, what's up?
How are you?
Good. How you doing today?
Okay, I'm happy. We have a Patriots win unexpectedly. So for 7 days anyway, they've got the best record in the NFL. Give it another week. It won't last, but we have it today. So for Sunday, I'm happy.
I like it. I like Brissett. Like I was happy for him. I just saw his after press conference and talking about Mayo, this little speech he gave. And I like that both of them are winning. A black quarterback and a black coach. And I like underdogs. I've always liked Steve Grogan. Like most people like Brady as their number one patriot. I'm the Steve Grogan still. Like he's my number one. Maybe Plunkett, Jimmy Plunkett. Like going back. Like I like the underdog. So I think it was great today. Patriots won.
Logo Patriots, like this old logo.
Yeah, Pat Patriot. Yeah.
Well, Pat Patriot's a better logo, but it's the sign generally of losing. So they ought to bring it back when they're winning. But I heard you talking about these 2020 things, and as you were giving your spiel, something jumped out. They're going to do these shows anyway, whether you participate or not, unless they don't get enough cooperation, and then there's no show. I'm getting handed another water, sorry, and a dog. Lola saying hello. And in this episode, it was very interesting that they didn't have any people to speak to other than Karen, her lawyer, and a few friends and past acquaintances. A little bit odd, the choice of people they chose, but people who obviously were there to humanize John O'Keefe. And my point is, in hindsight, if there is no Karen Read interview on that show, there's no show. And the reason is, what are they doing? They had no Alberts, they had no McCabe's, they had nobody associated with the case who participated other than the defense. And you're obviously not filling a 2-hour show just with a narrative without interviews and having family members say that John O'Keefe was a good guy, which is fine. They have to do that. But they kind of gave them the show by participating. Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, that gives you a chance to say what you want to say. But the other disadvantage is that interview was from so long ago. Certainly before the evidence played itself out, certainly before you knew what was going to happen in court, how things would play out, what would work, what wouldn't work, how bad was the Proctor situation, how effective was some of the other evidence. So, that's a disadvantage too, when you're using dated footage that doesn't necessarily reflect the current state of the case. But these shows are always pretty much useless, to be candid, because it's a 2-hour show by fly-by-night media who descends upon locations, does some interviews, cuts some edits, talks to a few people, and then they try to cram in 3 years of craziness into 2 hours for, Mary Jones in Cincinnati, Ohio, who presumably knows nothing about the case. And that's the audience. So, I thought the show was mostly useless if you know anything. But the idea, well, why didn't it contain all these other facts? There's no time. There are things that they clearly missed, even in the context of what they did. Once you start talking about the taillight and the defense, for example, you have to put in the part where she backed into John O'Keefe's car. That's kind of a can't miss, obvious point that had to come in. And if you're going to cover corruption as part of it, or alleged corruption, then I don't know how, as a last minute edit, and they can edit, by the way, and I've participated in these shows, they can add and delete within hours of the show viewing. They're that
absolutely good. Yeah, yeah.
ABC,
there's a certain deadline. I used to work on a show too.
They are a major operation. They can do it.
Right.
And in this case, they had a week and a half. How do you not, even as part of the epilogue of this thing, mention, oh, by the way, there was a federal indictment of a police officer, a case that was investigated and swept aside by the same prosecuting agency, same police agencies, and it turns out that the federal government brought a murder indictment against a police officer, and the public is not going to be interested in that. But beyond that, these things are never satisfying, I think, to anyone other than people who are just going to watch the broad view. They're probably going to look at it and say something happened here, because there's just no time to get into the defense. And beyond that, I don't think it's going to have any real impact, because people around here, by here I mean Norfolk County, not where I am, they're not going to be influenced by this. And those are going to be the jurors. That's ultimately the audience. But to the extent anybody tries to keep score nationally, she spoke confidently, didn't dodge any questions, didn't try to weasel out of answering any questions. So if you're going to do it, she did it. And, I think she came off pretty well. People are always going to agree or disagree. I don't think she said anything that's overly harmful or would potentially, oh my God, we're going to use this against her. I mean, she did make some sort of admission of consuming some degree of alcohol, but I don't think that's exactly rocket science.
Let's stop right there, because I've heard from so many locals this weekend, people that have not been following this.
And that's the audience. That's exactly the audience for this.
Yeah. And they could be jurors. Like, I'm not saying they're all in Norfolk County, but they're like, one of them today that I saw, I'm not going to say where he's from, but I'll say he's in one of the areas that we do protest in, that we do standouts. It's not in Norfolk County, but pretty close. So I would say he's more in where you grew up, that area. Let's put it that way. But like, he had no opinion until he saw that. Now it's, exactly what you said, the 4 drinks. That's why I just cut you in. He said, if she admits to 4 drinks, what did she really drink? Like, there's people like that out there. Like, they're so cynical. They believe that the government, the investigators are corrupt, but they believe Karen Read is corrupt too and hiding something. They believe they believe everybody. They don't like this guy was like, I think the McAlberts are corrupt. I think the DA is corrupt. I think Karen Read is something. She did something. So that there's that kind of feeling for a lot of people out there.
Though, again, you do a show like this, you have no editorial control over it. It really is up to the media entity to decide what makes the cut, what doesn't. And the reality is, when you get to trial and there's going to be evidence in the case, there's going to be cross-examination by very skilled lawyers. There's going to be argument by very skilled lawyers. Another way of saying they're going to have a lot of editorial control at a trial. There will be burdens of proof. There will be things that did not get presented on ABC, such as backing into John O'Keefe's car, such as the ARCA stuff, such as a deep dive into the butt dials and text messages. They did mention the Google search, but whatever. Such as all of the inconsistent statements that were offered against her, such as the Dighton police officer, such as, they mentioned Proctor a little bit. They didn't mention any inverted video with Buchanan. They didn't mention how this taillight was founded. They didn't mention that the search that was ordered by Tully was put on hold. And when they offered to come back the next day in the daylight, which is what you'd think any sane investigator would want to do, he said, we're good. Nothing to see here. We're good here. We'll find it when the snow melts. All that, you could go on and on, comes out in a courtroom with skilled lawyers and burdens of proof. And I just don't think at the end of the day, it's going to add anything other than exactly what I thought it would do, which is the people who hate Karen Read before this are going to hate her more. And there's an irrational hatred, I think, by many. It's okay if there are people out there who go, I think she's guilty, whatever. But there is an irrational dislike for any number of reasons. And I think the people who supported her before still do and think the show was pretty garbage. So I don't think anything has happened other than ginning up people who haven't seen anything. And if they're serious about being interested in any kind of criminal cases that are in the news, and they really want to follow up on it, I assume eventually they're going to make their way to actual coverage beyond a 2-hour Friday night specials, such as you and others, and dig in, learn, and whatever. And if it draws more eyes to people who actually have information, that's probably a good thing for her as well. But would
you tell her not to do, if you were her attorney, would you say, like right now, apparently they're working with Dateline too?
There are different reasons for different people to do this. I will tell you that I thought she did well. I do. Having said that, I would not, during the pendency of a case, have put a client in that situation. That's me. They obviously felt differently, and that's it's not without risk. I mean, the reality is those things can be admissible if for whatever reason they choose to do it. And I don't know what arrangement they have. I mean, I'm sure, again, I'm going on experience here in dealing with these people. You negotiate, you try to set rules of engagement. If you're going to do this, the first thing ABC or anyone's going to say is, we don't want to do this if we can't speak to the client. They're going to try to play to the lawyers and say, we're going to get you on TV. And then the issue is, well, do you limit what you're allowed to talk about? And that they may go for that, they may not. Many times the lawyers will say, we're happy to do this show, but client's not talking, I'm talking. And they may allow that, they may balk at that. They may have an agreement, you can't air this until the trial is over, but they may not have covered what happens in the unique situation that happened here. It's not over, even though everyone thought it would be over. So, I don't know what the arrangement was. I've had clients go on 2020, and there have been very serious guardrails put into place. Now, this was not a client with an open criminal case. It was a post-conviction type thing. So the rules are different. The risks are definitely different, but in allowing him, and by the way, every client wants to go on. Don't kid yourself. Everyone does. But in allowing him to go on, we did have restrictions. We're not going to talk about this or that. And, you could take it or leave it. And that's just the way it is. I think they wanted her to confront any and all questions. And she did. I mean, they chose to do it, obviously. And apparently they're doing it again on Dateline. So they're clearly comfortable with it. And so is she. And I don't think she damaged herself. I mean, I don't want to.
No, I don't. Personally, I don't think she's to blame for it. I think she did her best. I just think that the way that they presented that thing,
But that's not in the least bit surprising. I mean, the only thing I wonder in hindsight is if you tell them we're not going on, okay, then the production itself they may say we're not doing it, because again, it has to be interesting. And if you took away Karen's interview from what you saw 2 hours of, if you think that ABC was going to greenlight a show with 6 friends and relatives sitting on a couch saying that, John O'Keefe was a good guy, that show is getting canned 2 minutes after anyone says, here's how we're going to do it. To be candid, I've never seen one of these episodes on a case like this where they literally don't have any real participation other than the defendant. That's unique to me in watching these shows. There's usually people involved in some level who speak to things, and the obvious people to speak, and you can understand why they would not, by the way, would be, Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, that cast of characters. So if they said she's not going on, my suspicion is there is no 2020.
I think that might have been the better call. I don't know though, because at the same time, you do want the name recognition. You want to.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's going to harm a case, and I think she did well. I mean, I want to be clear when I'm saying I'm not sure I would have allowed a client to do it. I don't think the result is bad at all. Again, I think she was very addressing the questions. I mean, the concerns I would get are, again, watch how they edit things, watch what they include, and watch what they don't include. Okay, and when they're including, a woman dressing for court, that's kind of a red flag for me. Like, that's fluff. That's nothing. That clearly is a kind of thing that is going to get a lot of these loonies who just, criticize her for doing anything literally on a daily basis to say, oh my God, how can you talk about this and, not show remorse for that? I mean, you can't win with like a certain segment of the loonies who follow this case and just have this vitriolic and irrational hatred of her lawyers, people like us who just, God, have an opinion about thinking the case is terrible against her. I don't know why that's worth criticism per se, but Yeah, it's risky. There's always risk in allowing a client to publicly say anything. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. And if somebody in her position does say something that comes out bad, yeah, they'll try to use it against you, and they'll try to get the clips. They'll try to, do all that. But I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm the DA, am I trying to offer evidence that she said she had 4 drinks? I mean, you could go both ways on that. On the one hand, you could say, well, she just said I was consuming alcohol. On the other hand, she's saying with a certain degree of confidence but I had nothing like they said. And don't forget what you saw in 2020. You have to think of it in the context of a trial. If she says, well, I might've been a little buzzed, guess what? That's entirely consistent with all the evidence offered by the witnesses at trial, including the witnesses that the defense is pointing at who ought to be adverse to her. And they're saying she was not at all impacted. So don't assume the DA is jumping up and down saying this is great for us. It's not. Their argument is that she had 9 drinks and had a blood alcohol content that, over the course of several hours, if you extrapolate it out, and again, you get into these shows, they tell you the BAC, then they put on their legal expert who says, oh, in every state in this country, that's intoxication, but they leave out the most critical fact. Any scientific test relies on a premise. In order for a test to be valid, the underlying premise has to be accurate. And the problem they have, the key premise in this case, is when did she last consume alcohol to use this formula? And the answer is you have to depend on Michael Proctor for that evidence. And you shouldn't depend on anything that he says other than his name is Michael Proctor with his credibility. But that's not the kind of thing that's going to make it into a 2-hour presentation. So I think the show itself isn't going to add anything to anyone that matters. I don't think, oh my God, because a couple of people randomly watched it and said it doesn't look so great. I get it, but they just don't put in all the other things. The other thing I would tell you is this: be on the lookout for the fact of a follow-up, okay? Because this case is nowhere near over. There's a lot more to go, and they may already have footage for that. I mean, maybe they don't assume that was her interview. You don't know. They could have hours more of, B-roll or whatever.
Yeah, they may drag this out.
I mean, and it's logical depending on what the rate, and this is all Hollywood stuff. What are the ratings? I don't even know. But, if the ratings... I think
it sounds like the rate. It's just my personal life. I feel like the ratings are probably pretty good because it seems like a lot of people watched it, at least around here.
They're pretty good, and they buried 48 hours in, Dateline that week. That's the competition. Yep. Then absolutely they're going to want to make another one. I will also tell you that it's shocking to me that Dateline is doing this because usually they compete for the same story and they wine and dine you. So from a lawyer's perspective, you laugh because you drink a lot of good wine, eat a lot of good steak when you go out with them trying to pitch you to go with us. But usually when somebody gets the inside track on this and there's a go, the other ones say, I don't want sloppy seconds. I'm not doing this. It's just, it's gone. So the fact that Dateline is apparently doing one tells you how big a story they perceive it to be. I'm surprised that they're doing a sloppy second of this. You don't usually see that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be huge and all different platforms. Someone, Stephanie, one of our mods, said these networks don't pay for interviews anymore, do they? I don't think so. Like, and if they do, not in the way they used to.
No, and I remember years ago, we had a client, and we went on the tour of all of these, and they wine and dine you, and we met with 60 Minutes, ABC, NBC, this, that, and 60 Minutes is the gold standard, obviously. Of this, is not really a 60 Minutes kind of story, by the way, but in any event, we got wined and dined by 60 Minutes at Michael's restaurant in Midtown Manhattan, which that's the quintessential media capital power lunch of the world. And we sat at a table next to Laura Bush, who at the first time, I think she might've even still been the first lady, whatever. The point is, they make it clear, we're 60 Minutes. We don't pay. We don't, and that's, you're not looking for that. They're not getting paid for this. That's not how they're raising money. They may raise money by drawing attention to the case and people get outraged and want to help with their legal fees, but they're not getting paid by ABC to appear or anything.
I don't believe that. Yeah. I used to work with a guy doing the, when I was a union beer delivery guy, and one of the helpers in the warehouse, he used to go on these weekend trips to New York City for Ricky Lake and Jerry Springer to talk about his
That's a whole
crazy
other level of
love life. Like,
yeah.
It's like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I got a free hotel, free dinner, limo. I'm like, really?
Listen, you go on these shows. I mean, like, last year,
You are not the father. I think it was one of them. You know what I mean?
I went on Dr. Phil last year, and I don't think that. Well, maybe that is like Ricky Lake and all of that.
Yeah.
And, they flew us out to LA for a couple days. Nice old school Hollywood hotel. It was fun. Client did not appear on that one, but he was, of course, was in prison, so that's a little difficult. But these things happen all the time, and they will definitely pay expenses and do this. I don't know how much this would have cost ABC, given that they had to travel a lot. I mean, when I did these shows in New York, I mean, you just go to ABC's national headquarters where they have a million incredible studios. So. But if they had to go appear in Boston and whatnot, they're setting up hotel conference rooms as their base of operations and whatever. So I'm sure it cost them a lot just in travel and being off site, and whether they whisked them to New York, who knows? I don't know.
Can you wish my dog Stella happy 5th birthday? She is watching with me. Sheila wants to know.
Happy birthday, Stella.
Happy birthday, Stella. I met a dog named Stella this morning. So Stella's a popular dog name, apparently. A little puppy. Cute puppy I'm going to be walking. So happy birthday to Stella. 5th birthday. That's a almost middle age. That is middle age pretty much for a dog now.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Depends what kind of dog it is. Yeah, well, that's
exactly.
That's the cruelest thing in the world is the
how quick it goes.
Relatively short lifespan of a dog is one of the cruelest things in the world.
That and losing hair. I'm gonna keep looking at my hair. I'm adjusting my hair tonight because it's like it's I got a high. So people accuse me of having a toupee. It's all real. I should just shave it off. It gets too much. People talk about my hair. I'm focused on the hair tonight. I'm trying not. It's bugging me tonight.
That's what Dennis Eckersley would call a bunch of salad, right?
Yeah, it's too much salad. Too much salad. I need to do what I did when I was a kid and shave it.
You just go short when you don't have.
But it won't come back though. That's the problem.
Well, that's a big problem.
Right when you get older, it doesn't come back. All right, so I want to definitely talk about the juror thing, because I think that was my biggest concern about the 2020 thing. It's not so much like she's going to say something that's going to be used against her. I know as an attorney, you would be your number one kind of concern.
Let me just
it's the jurors. But I think you got a good point that people, once they're in the trial, you may have a preconceived notion, but it's going to change if you sit there and absorb all this evidence. But we have learned quite a bit from Aiden's reporting about the jurors, and this latest one, it just, to me, the ARCA stuff, it just what they said. Did you read this interview with Turtle Boy?
I did, and I'm familiar with a lot of this, what was reported, and this concept of ARCA either being, a defense insurance or, even hired by him. To me, again, lawyers always look at this differently. The concern, if it's the right word, from the juror was the idea that we knew who you were, and family members were talking about you to us, and then we saw you in court and might have thought you even paid for, meaning Aiden, for ARCA. Ironically, that speaks to possible outside influence, and that is one of the topics that does enable jurors to be called back. I mean, but it also tells you the kind of wacky world we live in. If there was an outside influence potentially impacting the jury, you could have a hearing and here we go. But based upon juror 6 now confirming that there were not guilty verdicts on 2 counts. And, we were told that by the foreman, and this is crazy to me, by the way, that this was left in that way, but whatever, that we couldn't tell the judge that even though some of us wanted to, that we had really a partial verdict. You can't call them back for that, apparently, but it's just, it's all ass backwards. It's just,
It really is.
But so again, all this stuff about the jurors' thought process was interesting, but the stuff that lawyers focus on are what probably sound like throwaway comments to most people, which is, what do you mean family members were telling you about, a controversial outside influence who is somehow related to this, and then you recognize them, and then you assumed he might have paid for. I don't know what they meant, but if they meant because you're a known advocate for the defense and we thought you paid for them, that's kind of a roundabout way of saying, did the defense and you just buy a favorable opinion, which, if true, would be discrediting to some level. And in reality, the exact opposite is true. So, look, if that's an issue for her lawyers to scratch their heads and say, is that something we should be looking into? I would.
Yeah, you would look into it. Yeah, with probably how do you look into that as an attorney? Detectives? What do you do?
There are different ways. You want to get your facts straight first. But if you're confident that there is a credible report of a juror saying there was, again, inadvertent, it doesn't mean the juror was unfair and in a devious way or anything like that. But if there was an outside influence and discussion about things that clearly should not have been discussed, well, now you start thinking about other things. The judge allowed in evidence that, a blogger intimidated Jennifer McCabe and her daughter. Now, you don't think they knew what that is? And what if they connect that to all this other stuff we're talking about? Now you're getting very dangerously close, if not past the line of, that's not fair. If there's possible undue influence and extraneous evidence that's not part of the record that the jury's thinking about or potentially being influenced by, then that's a problem.
Someone's telling me to find a good barber and have it trimmed. I have a good barber. I just don't have the time to schedule. I'll call her now. I said I was going to do it this week. I didn't. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Her name's Shanta. She's very good. Maybe next Saturday. We'll see. I got to get the new glasses too. That's the other thing I've been talking about. I got too much stuff on my list. I got the teeth done. I got the car done. I got the I forget. What am I doing? The smoke detector. I've done a lot, haven't I? A lot of adult stuff. It's hard to keep up. I don't know. How do you do it, Bederow? You're an attorney, and you don't have a problem with keeping up with the adult stuff like I do.
Most of it. The other day was one of those freaking smoke detector things dinging, and we've got about 800 of some variety of those. And it took forever to find which one was, standing for each one. Yeah. That kind of was a pain in the ass. But yeah, we get through it. We're all right. We kind of have a crazy sitcom here. We have a full house full of people and dogs. It's a little hectic around here.
Yeah. I also work on Saturday and Sundays too, and every other day. So
yeah,
I had to work this morning. It's okay. Yeah. I'm not complaining. I love my life. I like work.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's when you're a lawyer, it's never 9 to 5. There's fire drills all the time and it's very difficult to schedule in a classic way of get up, come home, eat, go, your days are always kind of all over the place. But, as the famous man said, this is the business we have chosen. So,
yeah. Glad says smoke detector needs constant replacing at Mike's. Story checks out. He's our fact checker. He's right. I have a lot of smoke detectors here. Actually, it is. I have to stock up on batteries.
Smoke. Raid, whatever. There's like a million.
CO2.
That.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot. All right. So let's get up. We're off the smoke.
We're off the smoke detector.
Enough about us. Did you guys have any real questions tonight? Put them in the chat. No, not about my haircuts though, or smoke detectors. So about this whole thing with especially the whole thing with the juror, and specifically blaming it, like not blaming it, but basically thinking that ARCA was funded by maybe Turtle Boy or an insurance company. They're speculating because they don't know. They can't figure out where these ARCA guys came from. What's the defense going to do if it's retried? How are they going to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, the lead into this, and a lot of you will say I'm crazy, and I'm not talking about specific judges, but several months ago, I told you there are times I'm a big fan of bench trials, generally. And this juror, did not do anything wrong. He's just saying what he believes, and that's he acquitted on 2 or 3 counts and wanted everyone to know, and whatever his views are, I don't think it is what it is. It's beneficial, I suppose, for the lawyers to know. But putting aside whether, a judge is better equipped for this, I know nobody thinks this particular judge is, so it's really a conversation for a different case. My view has always been that the ARCA stuff is point 1 of this. And I would not be dissuaded because this juror said some of us believed that it was paid for. I mean, that's not going to happen again. First of all, look what's going on in the news. Look what's happening. They're going to have a chance to interview these people. They know what's coming. ARCA is everything because they're pretty much establishing reasonable doubt right out of the gate. And it's not tinfoil hat stuff. One of the pushbacks of people who criticize the defense or, all this conspiracy stuff. And how are you going to get 11 to 13 people agree on this? You go by the facts. And the facts are, scientifically speaking, that there was no collision between the Lexus and John O'Keefe such that the car was damaged in the way it appears to be damaged, so say the Massachusetts State Police, and John O'Keefe could not have been injured in the way that he was found or end up in the location that he was found. And that in and of itself is reasonable doubt, but that also serves to me, perhaps just as importantly, as a perfect segue into the deviousness of all of this, because if there was no car accident and no shattered taillight because your arm is not going to destroy a taillight, then you have to explain how the taillight got there. And it's either gets there naturally from a car accident or unnaturally, as if somebody, put a little here or a little there. And all of a sudden it sounds a lot less conspiratorial when you've already established in advance it could not have happened the way they claim. And that segues perfectly into the whole Proctor Buchanan stuff about how they claim they found it, what the Dighton cop said, Proctor's messages, the inverted video. And all of a sudden, the conspiracy is getting, if that's the right word, is becoming more and more, not just plausible, it's starting to make a little more sense. You get into the butt dials, the text messages. I don't think you have to literally accuse anyone in the house of doing this or that, other than saying exactly what Alan Jackson said on the show the other night. He was killed, but she didn't do it. Okay. And that helps your argument. And you could say, I don't know who did it in there, but it didn't happen the way they said it. So she's not guilty, but these people are telling inconsistent stories. If it happened the way the DA alleged, somebody would have seen his body lying on the lawn. Somebody would have seen that. They would not have been butt dialing and sending text messages and saying, tell him the guy didn't come in the house, doing all these other things. And it all makes much, much more sense at that point. So to me, I think at a second trial, you clearly start with the ARCA guy. And then, I think there are little things you do to bolster your fundamental premise that the taillight can't be from an alleged impact. I'll never understand, but that's okay. Lawyers can disagree. It's fine. I'll never understand why the Dighton police officer was not cross-examined. I think that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
To have him drive it home. That guy was credible. Nobody.
Exactly.
So I think you'll see more of that kind of stuff.
Do you think that, let me stop you. Do you think they'll have an opportunity to talk? Because I don't think they talked to him at all before he testified. Do you think they'll have an opportunity to question him?
Absolutely. I mean, he has a right to say no, but I mean, he's an honest broker in this process. Now,
so you think that the defense is probably reaching out to him probably now, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I get it. He's an on-duty police officer. Generally, we don't like to talk to murder defendants who are indicted for, you know, killing officers. On the other hand, he's a straight broker. I think, you know, he'll either talk to them or not, but he already testified on the stand and you know what he's going to say. I think at a retrial, one of the other things that they'll deal with Proctor that came out at trial, but I really think wasn't emphasized enough was, and I'm not talking about text messages and all that stuff. I think the guy said he was doing homicides for about 8 to 10 years or something like that. I don't know what the exact number was. And he, you know, purports to be a trained investigator. He was adamant, defiant even, that, you know, he didn't have improper tunnel vision on Karen Read, even though he had improper tunnel vision on Karen Read, but he said he didn't, you know, based upon his lack of examining people in the house for 18 or 19 months in certain cases, but focusing on the Aruba people, all that. But of all of that, the one thing I really would resonate with a jury is the idea that when he ordered up a tow truck before he ever knew what was going on, you can't get better than that's tunnel vision. Okay. But yeah, even then, that leads to the next point, and this is the big point. You want us to believe that this taillight was in the way you described it, and we have these pictures in the Sally Port later on, you know, but what we don't have from this trained homicide detective is and all you do is pick up your phone and you go up to the taillight, snap, and then you have perfect metadata of what the taillight looked like on January, whatever, at whatever time. And I would assure you that if the taillight looked like the condition that it looked like in the Sally Port that they claimed days prior when they first saw the car, then guess what? This is a whole different situation and problem potentially for the defense. But he didn't do that. And that's inexplicable. There's just no possible explanation for that other than he didn't like what it looked like. And I think an emphasis on that with the Dighton cops, starting with the ARCA stuff and everything else that we talked about, you sit here and say, where is the proof beyond a reasonable doubt? I mean, based on what? And don't say I hit him, because that's not particularly credible testimony in light of all the other problems and in light of the fact that if you really parse it out, that's not what she said. I mean, there's like 4 different versions.
4 different versions of it. And none of it was written down in police reports.
Right.
There wasn't even reports. They changed their stories. It's just,
yes. And it gets mushed together. And, you know, just because the prosecutor says, I hit him, you know, all of a sudden it's like the game of telephone where it starts here and ends there. And it just becomes a legend of I hit him. But when you peel the onion back each layer by layer, that's not what the testimony says. And the reality is that the one witness who's most responsible for that just happens to be the, you know, acquaintance but non-friend of, you know, of Brian Albert's daughter, and who another Albert on the police department who is presently suspended because he, you know, hangs out drunk with Proctor and loses guns and that kind of thing, and who also apparently is, you know, mixed up in the Sandra Birchmore mess to some extent. Kevin Albert offered the room to interview her when they're supposed to be recused because of him. You put this all together, and This is the kind of stuff that happens in the courtroom. This is the kind of stuff that equals reasonable doubt, but this is the kind of stuff that's not going to make it on a 2-hour, interview for Mary Jones in Cincinnati on a Friday night in September. So again, just to bring it back to that, I really would not worry about any of that stuff. What I'd be worried about is if I was the prosecutor, about how the hell am I going to retry this case? All right. I mean, that should have been another thing that was more emphasized, even in the limited edits. I understand you're never going to get everything in, but it should have been noted that 3 of the principal witnesses, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully, who had critical roles in this case, are all in deep doo-doo about something involving, their conduct, which one assumes is related to her case, but who knows? They're going to have all these other problems, and they're going to have a defense who's going to be able to recalibrate and re-strategize, and they're good at what they do. Okay. And they know what they're doing. They know how to try cases. And if there is a second trial, nothing's changed. I don't see any chance. And I don't understand why people think, oh my God, she's going to
get better. It's going to get worse for them.
Well, it's already gotten immeasurably worse. By the way, don't forget, other things that are going to get harder for them at a retrial. Back to this inverted video. One of the things that they got away with at the first trial, and we talked about this then, and this should have been something that the judge should have had a bigger problem with. And this is unfortunate. I'm not getting into the whole corrupt versus whatever argument, but the judge should have been outraged by that spectacle with the inverted video. I mean, that is potentially perpetrating a fraud on the court in your, on TV in your courtroom with a murder defendant facing a fight for her life. And, these guys are shenanigans to the point where even when the video, are on cross-examination, the same witness, all of a sudden, when a video gets stopped in essentially the same location, can't say what he said the day before. And when he previously identified himself and Proctor a couple days before, got all amnesia about who was who. And I don't know, things that are very disturbing. At a retrial, if there is one, they're going to find out what the hell happened here. Okay. You can be sure they're making discovery demands. They're investigating. Where is the real video? How did we get this? Why did we get it in the middle of trial on top of everything else? Why did, Buchanan initially testify without problem? He met with Lally beforehand. Did they discuss that this was inverted or not? Did they just decide to go with it? When did they learn? I mean, there's all kinds of issues that are going to be really problematic, assuming any of these state troopers are even in any position to testify because of their own legal problems.
I want to thank Melanie Little and the Glare. I guess they sent a bunch of people over here after their live stream, and everyone's coming over saying they're raiding us. They're raiding Melanie Little and the Glare raid tonight of the Young Jerks. Thank you, everybody who's jumping over here. I appreciate it. And we had some more comments too. This is where I wanted to go. Back to this jury. Couple comments about this jury, especially related to Aiden's story. And it's like, to me, sometimes I think some people are too smart for their own good. And like, I think a lot of us too, a lot of people are looking at the jury like, how could you be this stupid? I think it's like, I'll read this comment. This is from Shannon McMahon. Oh, no, actually, it's not. It's from Shabone. This is a different person. Man, they say, if it seemed to me from the juror that the jury were not following the evidence, but rather trying to create a narrative of their own. It's like they're trying to solve, like, one of the things that they seem to think is like, oh, if the car didn't hit John, okay, but she still caused it because John fell back and the car, but what about all the broken taillight? So, I mean, it's like, even the way that they solved it was ridiculous. So I just wonder, how do you deal with that when you have a jury that just try to, like an engineer who really thinks he's a smart guy, and he's really not that smart.
Well, I don't want to sound repetitive, but especially with an engineer whose brain is going to be wired for what I already said and I'm going to say it again. This is just my way of doing things. I believe it's easy sitting in the peanut gallery to say these things. You start with the ARCA stuff. You establish it wasn't this, which leads and connect dot after dot. And then maybe, if there's a lesson learned here, if that's the right term, and, jurors, as you say, are apparently trying to solve the crime, then I would expect that the defense will take that under advisement and say, maybe we don't need to go as deep as we did into, where this happened or who was responsible, as much as exactly what was said the other night by Alan, which was, yeah, he was killed, but it wasn't her. And, you don't have to solve that question. You just have to show there's reasonable doubt. But part of showing reasonable doubt is saying, look, if he wasn't killed by a car in the front lawn, but he ended up on the front lawn, okay, with one shoe, face beaten to a pulp, like, what did the cops say? Looked like he was fighting Mike Tyson, all of that, with 45 pieces of taillight, which could not have come from a collision, then it had to happen in a different way by different people. And I can't tell you what happened, but I can tell you this. He went into that house based on this, right? Based on whatever evidence there is. If it happened the way the DA said, then every single one of those people coming out of the house would have seen the body in the middle of the lawn. And anyone who's been to that house knows it's a small front lawn. It doesn't make any sense that nobody saw this, okay? And it wasn't, 8 feet of snow at that point. He would have been visible by the car lights, the house, whatever. Again, I don't know what happened or who did what, but I know that these people started within a couple of hours deleting photographs, text messages, Google searches. That's not normal. And they're not saying what they said. So they're covering up something. I don't know what the hell they're covering up, but this is not natural. When Matthew McCabe or whoever was testifying about, tell him the guy didn't come in the house. That's not a natural thing to say. What do you care? You had a tragedy right outside that, this guy's girlfriend just happened to do in front of your house. Where's the sympathy, the concern, as opposed to they're digging up the lawn, but it's in front of the Asian guy's house. That's not natural. Okay. When Jennifer McCabe is, listening to the other interview, what are they saying? What are they saying? And
let me see your phone.
Meeting with Kerry Russell, or was it even Mrs. O'Keefe? And we need to make an outline of what happened. This is not what normal people do when they experience a tragedy in which they had nothing to do. Okay. Saying again and again that maybe she said this, maybe she said that, but then testifying at trial. I don't care what, Proctor Trooper said. I know what I said, and she told me she hit him. This is not how normal people testify. So I think there is a way to do this that will make jurors recognize that this is all nonsense. But I think you need to club them in the mouth, proverbially, not literally, right up front, and start with, when we tell you that she was framed, you don't have to start that she was framed because Michael Proctor is a dirtbag and corrupt. You start with, because the scientists are telling you this could not happen, literally. Okay, these are people that are educated, the leading experts in their field, that were not hired by us or anyone associated with us. I mean, I would add that into it. Not hired by the DA, and they're telling you this could not happen. Then how do we get to this taillight? How do we get to this? And I think it all flows together nicely at that point. I think that's how you do it.
Excellent. Some more comments. Here's one. Why no consequences for presenting misleading evidence? This is prosecutor misconduct. What do you
listen, I would assume that they're going to deal with this and try to get answers about, like, the inverted video, for example. That is an egregious, if nothing else, just an egregious discovery violation mid-trial to dump on the defense after they've opened, cross-examined, put forth a theory, and say, oh, by the way, we just found a video which shows the SUV going to the Sally port and shows Proctor and Buchanan doing whatever, and then it just happens to be flipped around. So the taillight at issue is out of view, and Michael Proctor is also sorry, just a dog eating something.
Lola?
Yeah, Lola, what are you doing?
Lola?
Michael Proctor is out of view. Oh, God. I don't even know what. You hear that funny noise like that's not.
No, I don't hear it. Now I'm listening. Could turn it up a little bit.
Michael Proctor is, doing all these things, hanging around the taillight. How do you not get that video before trial? And, the answer was no one had an answer for this. No one knows how it got, why it was inverted, who asked for it, when did they get it, why was it disclosed late? And most importantly, why did Buchanan say the day before he was cross-examined that, it just looks like a video and it's a true and accurate portrayal? It's anything but that. This is yes, this is some form of misconduct. It is. And they should get answers for this. And, this potentially even makes the prosecutor a witness, depending on what happened. I mean, if he knew about it in advance, I'd want that testimony, which, would create a problem. A prosecutor can't try a case and be a fact witness. But nevertheless, I would think they're going to try to demand answers and get an explanation.
People loving your sweatshirt tonight. We got so many comments.
Well, while we ponder my sweatshirt, give me literally 10 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
Get God knows what out of Lola's mouth.
I'll post some chats. Don't worry about it. Hopefully Lola's going to be fine.
She's fine. It's
His comment came in, and my honest opinion. Oh, I just clicked off of it.
Okay, I'm back. It's tinfoil.
What am I doing? See, now everything's falling apart here. No, here it is. I had something up and I clicked off it. In my honest opinion, all jurors should have a brief orientation. Do they get some kind of orientation?
Well, they get instructions. I mean, when you get called in, again, I'm going on what they do in New York, but they must do this everywhere. In New York, they have a central jury room. You get your summons. You watch a silly video. In New York, they get some kind of New York shtick celebrity to tell you how wonderful it is to, be a part of the process. They tell you how it works. They send you to a judge. And certainly when you get picked, there are instructions that the court will give the jurors before the trial starts, explaining who the parties are, how the trial works, opening statements, this, that. I guess that's an orientation, but they don't take them on a tour of the courthouse or anything like that.
Not like first day of college orientation.
Yeah, it's not like that.
Tour of the college, you get a little barbecue.
Yeah.
The parents leave and you're like, where's the keg party? I don't know. Did you go to a keg party the first night you were in college, or is that just something I would do?
I don't know.
Mom's watching. What are you going to say, Mr. Bederow?
I was watching, so I will.
You went to the library.
I will assert my Fifth Amendment right.
I spent a lot of nights in the library too, though.
Any answer I say may tend to incriminate myself. So
I spent a lot of nights at the library. That's where all the girls hung out, actually. So hang out at the library, One
of the bars at ASU actually very cleverly had credit cards set up where instead of saying, the Dash Inn bar and tavern, which was kind of a hot spot back then, I believe. I could be conflating this with another place. It's a long time ago, but I think it said the Dash bookstore.
There's a bookstore.
They just assumed people were using
You're buying books every day.
Buying books every night. Yeah.
New books. See, my mom would give me no credit card. I'd get like a $25 in the debit in the bank account. That's it. Once you're done with that $25, you're on your own, bro. Even that, it's like, wow, I'm surprised I got $25.
Yeah. Well, those are stories for another day.
Yeah, those are stories. Yeah. Things have changed today. Who can afford? It used to be a work your way through college. There's no way kids can do that to now.
Yep.
Edward writes, Buchanan was worse. He actively changed his testimony from it's me and Proctor in the car with Lally to that was the tow truck driver. This is
kind of what I'm talking about. I would not envy his position at a retrial if there is one. When somebody who knows how to do things the way that Alan does and has a transcript and has watched that video 1,000 times and gets answers about how any of this could have happened, about where that's heading at a retrial, that would be must-see TV, perhaps as much as any other examination at a possible retrial.
I look forward to that. They want to go. It's going to be good. What? Let's talk about Proctor. His phone. There's this thing that the state police gave to the Norfolk County DA's office. The phone extractions and the cloud extractions for Michael Proctor. But the DA wants to hold them back. What's going to happen with this? How does this work?
This is nearly as big a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be. So, I mean, Proctor is already, damaged goods, as everybody knows. And it's really, I mean, I hate to put this in these terms, but he's like a cancer to the prosecution. And the only issue is how far is this going to metastasize and screw up everything else with them. I mean, he is the quintessential albatross around their neck. So they've already disclosed that he's essentially on life support for employment reasons, which that's just a matter of time. They've already provided a copy of his transcript from the testimony to all these lawyers, which obviously under Brady principles, so that it could be either exculpatory and or damage his credibility, which is also considered exculpatory for, in a legal context. At some point, those text messages are going to end up also being disclosed. So all this letter is saying is, look at us, we're being responsible, okay? And they're saying there was, at trial, it was clear that it was his personal phone that was all this material came from. And in fact, that 100 times because the DA made such a big deal, as if it mattered and made it less offensive, that he was using his personal phone rather than his official work phone to, wish people to commit suicide, talk about accepting gifts on behalf of his family, talk about the physical condition of defendants and brag about, not finding any nudes and calling, other things that you're all familiar with that don't matter. So now all this letter is saying, so we have his work stuff. Now, so the first thing where people will roll their eyes, they'll say, yeah, it was extracted by the state police, which understandably is the same agency who couldn't find anything on Jennifer McCabe's phone that mattered. Apparently had, as we know, having a lot of trouble finding these devastating messages in the Sandra Birchmore case, and perhaps other cases that will be talked about in the future. But they're saying we have the data and we're letting you know. So the first thing that's important is they're acknowledging that they have possession, custody, and control of it. Now they have an obligation, like legally under Brady. They have, a lot of times prosecutors will try to weasel out and say, if it's not in our possession, custody, or control, that we have no responsibility to do anything. So that ship has sailed. So that's kind of the big legal development here, is that they have it and they're admitting we have it. Now what they're saying is, we're not going to just hand over literally his work phone to whoever has a case with Proctor. And that's a fine response. I mean, we'll have to break it down, but in the sense, no defense is going to get literally unfettered access to his work phone that has confidential investigative information. It could have names and addresses of confidential informants, which would be a safety concern. It could have normal, I assume at least some of the time he's doing normal police work, hopefully. Sensitive materials about investigations that have no bearing on his credibility. The part that's troubling in this is they say, well, we're going to look at it, and if there's any material that falls under Brady or Giglio, which is also Brady. Giglio talks about credibility evidence. That's a U.S. Supreme Court case too. or Rule 14, which is just the Massachusetts discovery statute. If there's anything that we're obligated to disclose that would be exculpatory in some sense or discoverable, we'll give it to you, but we have to determine what is. And yes, you're going to have to rely on them unless they say, maybe we'll bring in an outside firm to do that for us. But the way they phrase it is really troubling. I mean, this is buried in a footnote. And it says the Norfolk DA's office is exploring hiring an outside firm to examine the phone and cloud data to ascertain what information is discoverable. That's your job, people. You have to hire someone at taxpayer expense to tell you, the prosecutor, what's discoverable. This can't be real. I mean, whoever approved this, submitting, I mean, this is ridiculous. If they're trying to say that we want someone from the outside to do it as a neutral party because we know nobody takes us at face value, because nobody believes us, because we have no credibility, there's no way that they're going to do that. And you know, people online are saying, oh, you need to have somebody else do this. They have to, have a third party come in. No, the way Brady works is you rely on the integrity of the DA. And if they don't disclose the evidence, and you find out later, they get in a lot of trouble. Convictions potentially get reversed. But the way the system functions, there is not an assumption that the prosecutor is dirty. That's just not how the American justice system functions. It does rely on the good faith of the prosecutor. But to submit a statement saying we have to hire or consider hiring an outside firm to ascertain, that means figure out. That means tell us what is discoverable. My God, it's like worse than you think in that office. So you'll have to wait and see. They're basically saying, we have this material, stand by for further information. But in the meantime,
does that seem like a stall tactic to you to bring up that we need a third party?
I don't know. Well, I mean, certainly it would cause some degree of delay, but I'm stuck on not getting past the literal statement that we're considering spending your money, your tax money that you pay our salaries with to do justice and do the right thing, that we're going to have to pay your money to hire someone not in our office to tell us what is discoverable, what is exculpatory, and what isn't. That is pathetic.
Maybe we need a new DA. I guess someone that could actually do that kind of work.
But it will take time. I mean, when you get these extraction reports, they are tens of thousands of pages of a PDF.
Imagine all the text. They
are virtually unreadable at times. Even the stuff that you can read, it's really, it's cluttered. It's not, you don't get a printout of every
code. It's coded and all that other crap.
Well, and the best example is, I mean, look at all the fighting that was going on at the Read trial over, what it really said about. That's right, about that Google search. I mean, it really is. It can be confusing in many ways, but these phones are going to have tens of thousands of pages. The other thing is hiring an outside firm to ascertain what information is discoverable. So you're going to hire a third party and let them see your sensitive investigative.
Yeah, that just adds another chance of it getting. Makes no sense. Yeah.
You don't hire someone to do your job. I mean, if you have to contract people because you're saying that there are 80,000 pages of stuff and we can't look at it and we need to hire people to do it, that's fine. But the way this is written, it just sounds like they're basically saying, let someone else figure it out. Maybe it's just poorly drafted. I don't know. But the way it reads is that we need someone to tell us what's discoverable.
Question from Scott. They want to know, can the Mass State Police go on a RICO as they covered up Sandra's and Officer John O'Keefe's murders? They want to know, can the Mass State Police be RICO'd by the feds?
I mean, that would be first of all, a RICO case. It would essentially be the FBI arguing that the Massachusetts State Police, or at least as a subdivision of it, the Norfolk County Homicide Group, or whatever they call them, is literally by under the RICO statute, a corrupt organization like the mafia. I mean, that's what RICO was. Everyone knows. I mean, that was basically, organized crime. Now, again, I get it. All jokes aside, people are going to say that's the frickin' point, dummy. We believe they are a corrupt organization and are. But all kidding aside, are the feds literally? You would have to show that there is a structure and a plan to commit these crimes that are as one. No, I don't see that. Could there be charges, indictments? Sure. Do I seriously think that they're going to prosecute the Massachusetts State Police as a corrupt organization and argue that, whoever the people are? No, that strikes me as probably a stretch. Although, if you had said 2 weeks ago, how do you feel that the feds are going to indict a cop for, murdering a potential federal witness? Yeah, that's not what I would have thought either. So,
Mark Bederow for Norfolk County DA.
never.
Oh, never. Yeah.
Never.
You enjoy defending people too much, don't you?
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, look, being a prosecutor is great. Those are some of the best years of your life, especially, you're young, you're living and working in Manhattan. I mean, like being a DA, that's great. And being a prosecutor, even as a full-time career, it's very noble, but you want it to be done by people who want to do it and do it for the right reason and aren't just doing it to be, fat and lazy and corrupt and just do what they want and collect off the public dole and then just not give a shit about responsibility and fairness. And somebody, I assume, in Norfolk County will run. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, how do you not? And the reality is, I'm not the political guy like you are, but this thing that happened a couple of weeks ago with Sandra Birchmore, I think, is politically just an earthquake. I mean, how much more of this are people there going to take? I mean, how can you possibly now have any confidence in straight down to that, the state police involved, the Canton cops involved? I mean, how many more botched investigations, botched cell phone reports, lack of, attempting to interview people, lack of interest in getting to the apparent lack of interest in getting to the truth. So I would think at some point somebody would run and say, I think this is a bad case, and certainly look at the Birchmore thing. I mean,
we get a question about comment really about Proctor's data, and they're basically talking about the location data from his phone, that they'll be very interested to see Proctor's location data from his phone. How do you think the defense could use that if they ever got that? Would they get that? And how do you think they might be able to use it?
I mean, if it's available, and I would certainly argue if I were, the Karen Read people, that's favorable and discoverable, because here's the thing. The evidence is not clear on whether Proctor ever went to 34 Fairview on the day in question. He's adamant that he didn't, right? But was it Gallagher or whoever said, when I got there, I saw Proctor? And there was all this discussion about when they took the phone and, with Guarino and these guys were all pushing Proctor away, and, the crime scene could have meant the precinct, which is, I mean, that's just stupid, right? That nobody would, or what do you say? Could the police station have been a crime scene? And he said, maybe. And, again, your eyes roll and you say, well, yeah, if you're, corrupt. But putting that all aside, if that were to show where he was and when, that's critical. But perhaps more importantly, might it solve the time question of the tow truck issue that he tries to, the timeline is critical, right? I mean, obviously, if the math on the timeline of the tow truck, the SUV being towed, and when this stuff landed, was found on the lawn or snow, whatever it was, if it's not possible, well, that favors the DA, obviously, but that doesn't appear to be the case. But his data could tell you whether he was at least possible to be a suspect to do that. So yeah, I would be asking for that if I were them. Sure.
Excellent. Just looking for some. I want to try to take some calls tonight if we can. There we go. Let me turn it on first, though. Let's see. Yeah, are you down to take some calls, Attorney Bederow?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sure.
Why not? Right?
It's okay.
Until we get some crazy people. We always end up getting some. We've had some good ones lately, but sometimes we get some Baba Booies, you know. It's gonna take me a second to turn this on. Is it on? Oh, I don't know what I'm doing tonight. Hold on, people. Come on, phone. There we go.
Hello.
Hi, you're on the show. Is your computer is turned down, isn't it? I don't hear it.
I turned my computer down.
You're an awesome first caller already. You're already like 10 steps ahead of everybody else. Your name, please?
Dina.
Deemer.
Dina.
Deemer.
Dina.
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 Dina from
Gina.
from the courthouse. I just want to say, Mark Bederow, you are the man. I love when you go on some of the shows and just talk, because you tell it like it is.
Thank you. That's all you can do, right? Call balls and strikes. And that most people find that helpful. Others, if they don't like the opinion or have an agenda, find it not helpful and harmful, and they get nasty. But you just call it the way you see it. And if you have a little experience and it helps people understand the process more, then that's a win-win.
Well, absolutely. And you, like I said, you tell it like it is, and it makes, for some of us, understanding what's going on a little bit more. But I'm calling in because I really want to see some more arrests. The arrest of Farwell just gave everybody so much hope in this movement. And we really needed something to happen to show that, we're all not crazy loonies drinking the Kool-Aid, And I'm really hoping Levy pulls out something, because I really don't think we're going to court in January. I don't think it's going to happen.
I may be the only one that thinks it will. I don't know. I think Morrissey is that insane.
Well, they're going to want to do it. The question is logistically, and is it feasible to do it? I mean, they're running out of law enforcement witnesses, and you don't know what impact the feds, whether it's Birchmore or other things, could have. I mean, that's kind of looming in the background, and announcing a murder indictment that involves some of the same people, or certainly the same agencies. That's not anything just to laugh at. And there, some of those witnesses, it could impact the case. I mean, the screwed up cell phone extraction, it's a big deal, because it's apparently the same guy who's going to tell you that, trust me when I tell you that John O'Keefe didn't go in the house because, his iPhone was being held as they were going on a hill. And, that doesn't make any sense to, I think, people who have iPhones and have Apple Watches. But if that's the guy, but he has all this discrediting information about other things that he did, and he screwed up the car infotainment system, I believe, wasn't that him as well, which could have been exculpatory. At what point does his testimony have little credibility, and all of a sudden taking him out of the house becomes a harder thing for them to do? So there is a connection here on some level. And just the public perception too. I mean, people know that these are the same agencies who just wanted to call that horrible case a suicide and sweep it under the rug. And it turns out it's a death penalty eligible murder of a woman and your own unborn fetus, and that you staged to be a suicide, or as I like to say, he framed her for her own murder. It's horrible.
Yeah. I would say what I think in the big picture, and this is my own thought, is I think they're just waiting to see if we're all going to shut our mouths or keep on being out there. And then it's a matter of how far up do they have to go to indict people before it satisfies the people of Massachusetts where they can get away with it. And I think they're just holding out to see how far up they're going to go. Because we all know down here it goes beyond Morrissey. This has been going on generational. So,
what did you think about 2020, Dina?
Honestly, I thought they were going to paint Karen in a worse light than what they did. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. And so I don't agree with, I think they left a whole bunch of stuff out that was awful. I mean, that part was just horrendous to me. I think it was terrible that they really didn't interview any of Karen's family on top of it. But I thought it would be, the way the media has been playing their shit in all this whole trial, I thought it would have been 10 times worse than what it was. I didn't like a lot of points, but I thought it would have been worse. And I just think they didn't explain enough.
Good points.
But I think if anybody that's following the case steadily, thinks the whole thing was a joke. But it's for the people that really don't know what's going on. They still don't really know what's going on because they didn't even mention the feds being in there, the corruption. That was just terrible to me, but I don't expect too much from mainstream media.
Excellent. Well, thank you for calling tonight, Dina. Any last comments or questions for Attorney Bederow?
I respect him so much, and I'm so glad he's on with Aiden. And we all just got to keep up the good fight. And I'm just glad he's on board. And everyone have a good night, and free Karen Read, free Turtle Boy, and keep the continued justice for Sandra Birchmore. Night.
Thank you so much, Dina. Excellent. That was a good call. If you do call in, please turn off your computer or whatever you're listening to it so it doesn't echo. She handled that perfectly. Thank you so much, Dina. That was a good first call tonight.
First call.
Hi, you're on the air. Who's calling?
This is Karen. I called the other night and you picked up too, remember?
Yes, I do.
My
Hi,
North
Karen.
Shore friend?
Yes.
Yes.
Now you're on with Bederow. What do you got for Bederow tonight,
Yeah,
Karen?
oh my goodness. I never, ever missed this show. And we missed you when you were away, Mark. Terribly. Although Mike had some really great shows regardless. You are so insightful. You're so brilliant. And you just break it down in layman's terms, even with your officials, the way you speak, it's just so understandable. And I wanted to let you know I really appreciate that. I think all of the viewers do. It's just, you're just such an asset to justice, really. I have a question for you, Mark Bederow. And I had asked this once before. There's never an answer. It's always like, oh, Bev won't allow that. Is there a way, legally and adamantly, if you would, whatever the term would be for that legally for adamant, that they have to let the jury know that the feds were involved, that these witnesses that you're listening to now were hired by the FBI? I mean, why does that have to be the big dark secret? That's the most compelling evidence there is, you know?
It feels like if they don't allow that, it's like chicanery. Like it's
like there's practical and legal.
Is there a way?
Well, practically speaking, everyone who's going to get called in for a second trial is listening to the news and knows. Just like they know that there was factually probably an acquittal on most of this case. So the DA on that level is kind of screwed. I mean, the more it just gets publicized and, the people in that county are going to get called for jury duty. They're going to know. As far as at the first trial, not allowing evidence of a federal investigation, I mean, I understand the ruling. I mean, I'm being brutally honest. The idea is that if the jury knew that there was a federal investigation of, in essence, the state prosecution, then that would be pretty influential, obviously, against the DA, who also, they don't have a due process right like a defendant to a fair trial, but they're entitled to a fair trial. And if the jurors knew that while you're considering convicting this woman for murder on this evidence, the federal government and the U.S. Attorney's Office, who is, generally certainly around there going to be more respected than the Norfolk DA's office, is hovering and looking over them saying, dummies got it all wrong. What are you doing? Obviously, the jury is going to potentially be influenced and say, well, if the U.S. attorney thinks this case is garbage and she's innocent, what are we doing here? But there has to be a better way to make it abundantly clear that, I mean, you use the ARCA example, that not only were they not hired by the defense or the prosecution, but that they were not hired by anyone even remotely associated with the defense, whether it be insurance people, whoever. I mean, it's got to be clear that they are truly 100% neutral. Yeah. To me, at a second trial, there's such a larger knowledge source by jurors than there was before the first one, which was not a small thing. I mean, that was obviously a lot of press too, but it's 10 times the amount now. And I can't fathom anybody, one person who gets seated on a second jury and says, oh yeah, those are the guys the feds hired. The ones that also indicted the cop for murdering that poor girl. I mean, they're going to know all this.
Yeah.
It's practically speaking, it's going to come out, but I don't think the initial ruling was wrong. I think it's troubling, though, when you heard the report of a juror who said, well, maybe it was an insurance adjuster associated with the defense, or whether, it could have been, a third party that is somewhat, considered to be friendly to the defense. That's disturbing for sure.
Right. So these two gentlemen that were up there, the ones with the cannons and the ACA guys that were so magnificent, they worked on the space shuttle reconstruction. So can that question be asked? Like, what other projects have you worked on?
Yes.
Perhaps maybe.
Well, I think they did talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about the
they also, I know, the Zdeno Chera thing, which I think also is a local thing. That's a nice thing to work into there. I mean, if you're right. I'm a big Bruins fan. I remember watching that play in real time when he crushed, I think it was Max Pacioretty of the Canadians, right into the stanchion. And for a minute you thought he was dead, and they wanted to arrest him. It was crazy. But the point is, they work on all these things. These are the pros, and they clearly were hauled in, as a neutral party. But at a retrial, you have a larger base of knowledge to work with. What happened at the first trial? So when you saw that cross-examination, you didn't look at this, you didn't look at this. I would expect in a direct examination that they ask them, did you look at this? And really hunker down in much more detail. Does that impact any of your conclusion? Why not? Would you have looked at it? And I think the defense probably will show them this stuff now so they can say we did. And did it change your opinion? No.
We lost our call. We're going to take another call here. The phone's ringing off the hook.
Hello.
You got your, if you anyone who calls in, we're hanging up on you immediately if you have your computer or any background noise, which we just did on that person. So turn off your computer, whatever you're listening to it on. Hi, who's calling? Hi, you're on the air. Who's calling?
It's Gene, Mike, your favorite caller.
You just turned off your thing, didn't you?
I just what?
Did you just turn off your computer right now?
Yes.
Good. I don't want to
Okay.
hang up on you, Gene. I'm hanging up on people.
Oh God, I don't think it's them. I think it's you.
It's not me. I got mine all off. Gene, I love you. So what do you, Gene from Dorchester, what do you got for Bederow today?
Yeah.
Be quick. You got one question. One question per person, too.
I don't even really have a
Or
question. I
comment.
just
Go ahead.
like the last time I tried to call in when Mark left early, and I was pissed because I love Mark. I think you're the best. I
Thank you.
so get your sense of humor. Like, I love your sense of humor. It's the best. I think you muted me, Mike.
No, you're not muted.
No,
Oh, all right.
We can all
Well,
hear you.
I couldn't hear. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think you're the best too.
I couldn't hear you. But I, Mark, seriously, like, you're the best thing that ever, I always watch the Young Jerks. When I used to call in before Mark, I used to get in right away. I was like always the first caller. And he used to be like, it's Gene from Dorchester.
I knew
He
you
knew
were
who
calling
it was.
before. Yeah, I'd always know.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. Now I don't.
Now it's too many calls.
I can't hear Mark. Is he talking?
No, he's just watching.
I'm just taking it all in.
Anytime he gets too complimented, he gets real quiet. He just
Yeah, you honestly don't, because you're hilarious. I love your little like one-liners and stuff. It just kills me. But good day today. I thought the Patriots, on a lighter note, I thought they were going to lose, but we did all right. We won. That's all that matters. See, I can't hear you guys again. I swear you guys keep muting us.
no, you've got us speechless. You've got us.
I can't hear you. It must be my service.
Yeah, it must
I
be.
don't
We're
know.
gonna
My
let you go,
service-
Gene. Thank you so much for calling tonight.
Thank you.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye now. That was fun. I love Gene. We'll take a 978 this time. Who's on the 978 line? You're on the show. Who's calling? I'm sorry. Guys, if you call in, I'm asking you, please turn off your computer and be ready to talk. You're live on the show. Who's calling?
Hey, it's Tracy from Boston.
See, that's perfect, Tracy. What do you have for us tonight?
I am pumped. That's all I have to say. Mike, you're pissa. I love you. I'm sorry. I love Mark Bederow. I just love him. And I'm
Not set this up.
go back.
This is not, this is like the ultimate grift, right, Mike? I really, I figured it out tonight. Thank you very much.
Oh no, I love you. And I love all your merch from your vacation. I definitely know where you were. Go Pats. And I just really have a comment. I have a billion questions, but I have a comment. The jurors are a disgrace. Sorry. I don't want me to be harsh, but shame on them. I would have stuck my feet in the ground, my heels in the ground, and I wouldn't have budged. Period. End of discussion. And I think that they should have come out by now. I'm sorry.
Would you?
I hate to be difficult or argumentative, but shame on them.
Would you buy real estate from Mark Bederow?
Absolutely.
Actually, in the state of New York, where I'm licensed amongst some other places, you have, as an attorney, a real estate. You have the right to buy and sell real estate, essentially. So maybe I should switch to real estate law and use that license and buy and sell real estate. Why not?
Maybe you could sell a yellow cottage.
You can't give that away.
You have to pay somebody to live there.
Right?
Really try
Oh
and
God. All right. I just
those guys and the nonsense. One of them is giving me a lot of agita lately, but just it's more with stupid tweets than personality. But I'm trying to move away from even addressing some of those people.
You can't, and that's just a mindset that you have to get. You just can't. But I love you guys. I've lived in Massachusetts, in Boston, my whole life. I worked within the criminal justice system in Suffolk and Bristol County. I was terminated by the Commonwealth for being too aggressive. I'm an advocate. I've seen a lot of corruption. Uncle Joe's house, yes, love Sean McDonough. And I just really hope that, unfortunately, at the expense of Karen Read, that some light is brought to some injustices in the state, because it's obscene.
Thank you for calling, Tracy.
All right, guys.
Have a great night.
Take care.
You too.
Bye. Almost all the calls are just, I want to tell Mark Bederow I love him. It's all women. They love you.
Hey.
Yeah. And they're like, why are you so quiet?
Hello?
Hi, you're on the show. Who's calling?
Hey, Mike, this is Scotty Medeiros. I got to just quickly share this with you. So anyway, I'm from Somerset, Fall River, so I know Michael Proctor wouldn't like the Fall River accent, you know. But I moved to North Carolina, north of Charlotte. So my wife is from Charlotte, and she started watching this case, and she goes, "Gee, Scotty, you got to watch this. They sound like you. They got that, New England accent." Then all of a sudden, I, watch you. We came up for Memorial Day weekend to see some family. Went by the courthouse, met Rita, Nick Rocco, Tommy CPU. Then we find you, Mike, and Mark Bederow. And what's amazing with this whole Karen Read case is that my wife and I find people that want truth. There are good people like you guys. You guys are unbelievable. We watch you all the time. And, just seeing how people that don't know each other, I feel like I actually know you guys. I'm in my mid-50s. If I was a little bit younger, I'd ask either one of you to adopt me, But my question is, now that we watched this whole 2020 thing, big giant joke, nothing on the butt dials, nothing on the inverted video, everything that we know. Mark and Mike, what do you guys think about it? Are the feds going to get involved at all? I know you've talked about it a lot, but with all of this going on now, especially that, Stoughton cop being arrested, what's your take on the feds getting involved?
I don't know.
Well, I come at it again with just legal experience dealing with federal prosecutors regularly, but I'm just a lawyer with an opinion, so I don't have sources. Like a lot of the people who cover this do it not from necessarily a legal standpoint, but from a reporting or sourcing and whatnot. So it's kind of a weak answer, but I have no idea. They do move slowly. So what I can tell you, again, without getting into dealing with some of the people that aren't worthy of discussing, when they tell you that because a witness or 10 were called into a federal grand jury a year ago and nothing happened, that necessarily means that's the end of it. That's just entirely wrong. That's coming from people who don't live in the world of criminal law and knowing how it works and dealing with the U.S. Attorney's Office and FBI agents. I've had people that have had interactions with the U.S. attorneys out here a year and a half ago. You could hear nothing, and in a couple of weeks, things can happen. That it's not that uncommon. So, also, whatever they're looking at, they're obviously looking at something. They just indicted a cop for murder. So, obviously something's going on. But remember, they don't prosecute murder generally, and they don't even have a jurisdiction just to bring a murder case. They have to tie it to some kind of federal jurisdiction. In this case, murder of someone who had information, could be a witness. The point of that is for them to do that. It's a broader kind of thing going on here. And so they're not just looking at what happened in Karen Read case. If they're looking at anything, they're looking at corruption that occurs in this area, whether that involves the DA's office, the state police, the local police departments, and it's all probably part of the same thing. What does it mean that why did they charge this guy first and nobody related to the Karen Read case. Does that mean nothing's going to happen? Maybe. I mean, that I don't know. But also, if there's a cop out there who they think murdered an innocent woman and staged to cover up, deleted messages, obstructed justice, did all these terrible things, raped her, abused her, for years and years, one can understand why that would take priority. I mean, that's a potential monster you need to get off the street and lock up, as opposed to if you are investigating a DA's office or whatnot, that takes a lot of time. One thing that I disagree with a lot of people, whoever has said this, is that the feds are not watching the trial and having the defense not reveal things and wait for the next trial. That strikes me as just impossible. There is no way that any lawyer representing a client who's being charged for murder is going to take it easy because, maybe the feds will do the right thing. I mean, whatever strategic choices they made were made in their best interest of zealously representing their client. There's no way that they were holding off, assuming, we're going to win and then we'll let the feds do what they want. I just can't, that can't be the case.
Thank you for
I got one last question.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Oh, sorry. Last question, Mike. With Proctor, is he still, without pay, or are they letting him go, or what's the status there? Do you know?
It's the same.
He's
without pay.
He'll be dangling in purgatory, and then he's toast. He's
done.
He's literally useless to them.
Yeah.
And look what he's doing. He's
He's not going to work. It's just appeals. It's just the union process. He's done. I mean, yeah.
Well, thank you, guys. You guys are the modern day Superman, truth, justice, and the American way. So thanks again for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Scotty. Have a great night.
Take care.
You too.
It's an interesting question about the feds. I mean,
you just
don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I hear all kinds of stuff, but I don't have any confirmation or anything. So who knows? Who's on the line now? We got another call here. Who's calling?
Hi, go Bills. Samantha from Buffalo.
Samantha from Buffalo. Wow. Did you guys win today?
We did win today.
Wow,
They
congrats.
shouldn't, but they did. Yeah.
I mean,
Go Bills.
thankfully it was a rough first half, but we pulled it off, thank God. So I was wondering, the jury situation, even though that they said that they acquitted her essentially, and Mark always says factually she was innocent, how is this going to work in a jury pool if they try to dip in the same pool again? Like, how is this going to work? Like, how are you going to get a jury of your peers in Canton at this point?
It's a problem because everybody knows that, again, factually, forget the legal ruling. I'm talking literally every juror is coming forward essentially and saying we acquitted her, at least of the murder count and the third count. And everybody knows this. It's in the news. It's going to continue to be in the news. And at some point, the DA, if they do retry the case, they have to read the room here. And one thing they seem to lack is understanding the significance of credibility, and whether they believe that Karen Read murdered John O'Keefe, which I don't understand how they could possibly think that based on any number of reasons. But even if God's honest, that's what we think. That's not the standard for bringing the case. And the reality is every potential juror is going to know that, wait a minute, I'm being called for a murder case. That woman got acquitted. What are we doing here? And whether they have a legal right, which at the moment they do, to retry her for murder as a practical matter, how dumb can you be as a prosecutor and sacrifice your own credibility by running the risk of jurors thinking you're overreaching, this is just not right, this is over aggressive? And we keep saying how the defense absolutely is going to learn lessons from the first trial, and they're smart and brilliant and amongst the best lawyers, some of the best I've ever seen. They're going to adjust, and when they're that good, people may find this hard to believe, but your ego allows for you to make those changes because you're confident in what you're doing and they're not worried about a lot of the noise. But the same should hold true for the DA. They should be taking lessons from what happened. And the first lesson they should take is the murder case stinks. And it's clogging up, turning this into what ought to be maybe a 3-week trial into what felt like a 3-year trial. And, maybe all of this evidence of, women from Aruba and this and that, and so-called angry text messages, which are actually, in the proper context, quite favorable to the defense. And I think that was handled well the other night too on the TV show. You're giving her way too much credit to think that she's going to, concoct all of those calls in that tone and whatnot. But if they choose to retry her for murder, and that does happen, there is no answer to your question because everyone knows. And it's profoundly stupid. And it's also, again, you get to the ethics of this, and you get to their motivating factors and what they perceive their job to be about. What does it mean to seek justice? So, one of the concerns is they know she was acquitted. Forget the law for a minute. They know that these jurors acquitted her, and they don't have any concern even hearing about, well, then why didn't you publish the verdict? And you're starting to hear some of it come out now. And the answer is frightening, by the way, what you were told about.
But even so when I read the Turtle Boy interview from the juror, and also the subsequent reports about how they obviously acquitted her, but the directions were confusing, etc. But for example, Judge Bev allowed those Aruba girls who added 0. I mean, this happened way before whatever jealousy bullshit anecdote they said happened, obviously preceding whatever crime and whoever killed John O'Keefe, which was obviously not Karen. How did she allow something? How does she allow that in? But she doesn't allow the jurors who are saying we were confused by the directions, but we acquitted her on these things. Don't you think the latter is more important?
Well, I don't.
How are you hearing people who don't matter, but you're not going to hear the jury?
Well, I don't think one technically has to do with the other. In terms of the Aruba witnesses, I agree. They're silly witnesses. And if your argument is that the motive for murder is what happened in Aruba, I think that's a stretch. But as a legal exercise, the DA's theory is that the murder, started with this jealousy and came to a head in Aruba, and it re-triggered later on. Is a judge going to exclude those witnesses? No. Privately, might a judge roll their eyes and say, what are you doing? This is profoundly stupid. And it is. But no judge is going to keep that out if that's their so-called motive evidence. It's just weak.
Excellent. We have a telephone number. People are asking for the number. It's scrolling on the bottom of the screen, 978-560-3155. Ask one question, one comment. That's it. Quickly tell us your name. Turn off your whatever you're listening on. And be ready. Be instantly ready. If you're not, we hang up on you. Who's calling?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Who's calling?
Oh my goodness, this is Donna from Peabody. I have to jump in on the love fest. I love you too, Mr. Bederow. And Mike, you run a great show. I've been a new member since the Karen Read case. But I have to tell you, I'm a nurse, and we in the medical profession base all of our care and decisions on scientifically based evidence. Where was the jury when it came to the scientifically based evidence that ARCA showed and the pirouette? Are you kidding me? I just cannot believe that they would actually think that it was even possible between the dog bites and the autopsy report. And it's just unbelievable. But my question is, when they go, can they go to a new trial I forget what my question is. I'm so flustered. Sorry.
That's all right. Donna from Peabody. I love that we got North Shore calls tonight. So very cool.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think of it yet?
No. Anyways, I don't know. Thank you for everything you've been doing for Karen, and I think we're all in our corner, and I just can't get beyond the scientific based evidence, like the dog bites. Like, how do you get past that? How do you get past the ARCA guys? So, and is there still? Oh, I know. Is there any way possible, Mark, that somebody could force Auntie Bev to call in the jurors and poll them at this late stage, even though, I mean, it's up for appeal, right? Are they appealing her decision? Is it possible that could happen?
They've stated their intent to appeal it. I'm unaware that they've actually filed something. If they have, I assume we would know, because it would be, people would find it in the docket and all of that. What is interesting is that if the higher court were to, in essence, overrule her, what they would do is they would send it back and say, you need to hold a hearing. They made the argument that a hearing should be held, but it was kind of a backup argument for them, for the defense. They were kind of going for the whole enchilada, saying just declare, her not guilty on those counts. And, maybe it's the different culture in the different state, how they do things, but it strikes me as the initial ask is bring in the jurors. And what she should have done was say, are you telling me you think you acquitted her? Fine. Without the deliberations, just the result. And then that leads to the real money question, which is, well, why the hell didn't you publish the verdict if that's what you believe you did? And I think that's the frustrating part in all of this, is it appears that they did want to acquit her, but they didn't literally publish that verdict. And that, for that official reason, is as of yet undetermined. A juror said, apparently, last night or a couple of days ago, that some of us wanted the foreman to do that, and he wouldn't, and we just kind of shrugged our shoulders and said, well, he's the foreman. That's disturbing to me for a couple of reasons, because the foreperson, it just happened to be a man in this case, that's more a symbolic thing. They are the unlucky mope who get assigned the task of writing the notes and publishing the verdict and all that. But they're not, and the judge says this in every case in America, they're not to have any otherwise outsized influence. They're not any more important than any one of you. They're just a vessel to communicate with the court. And if there were jurors who were adamant about this, for the life of me, I can't understand how the foreperson doesn't come out with a note on behalf of the jury, just says, we have a question about this. Like, what do we do? And then deal with it that way. So, I mean, I think that was one of the more disturbing things that came out of not that this juror did anything wrong, but just that the way this ended is literally, some of us wanted to tell the court or ask, and the foreperson said, we can't do it. And we just said, well, I guess that's it, because he's the foreperson. That's just not how it's supposed to work.
So there's also a lot of, I don't know if it's true or not, but was the foreperson assigned that task by Judge Bev?
Yeah, but that's how it's done in Massachusetts, from what I'm told by Massachusetts.
Yeah, they pick the first juror. They pick the first one every time.
There's no goblin in that window. He was in the seat. Yep. And
he was the first seated, the first pick. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling, Donna. Great call from the North Shore.
Okay.
I love to hear from our ends. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good call. She had everything going. She did good. Good call. Yep. Let's take a couple more. We're almost done here.
Hey,
who's on the phone?
It's Annie Ruler.
Who?
Annie Ruler.
Annie.
Hi. Is there any chance that they could file for a change of venue before the next trial?
Why would they? I mean, they have locally a DA's office who just looked as awful as a DA's office can possibly look, Sandra Birchmore. You have a state police agency who looks as awful as they could look, Sandra Birchmore and Karen Read and God knows what else. You have Canton Police who look terrible. You have other news that the colonel, if you will, of the state police just got replaced. Although I know the other guy was interim, but it's no coincidence. Probably it's happening now. I don't know why the defense would want to change venue. That you're not getting rid of the judge that way. So that's not the answer. The judge will go with you. So that's not, you can't end around a judge you don't like that way.
Right. Okay. But the population is very small, and the intimidation that some are admitting they felt, to where they're saying that the car did not hit John, but they're willing to give her manslaughter charges just because they felt they had to do something.
Well, I think, again, just to play this devil's advocate straight down the middle, the fact that on one count there was a hung jury tells you, from a court's perspective and the people that would argue in opposition to this, that is quintessentially good jury selection, that there were people that had different views and, there's a disagreement about what happened. I mean, there are 3 people who who straight acquitted, apparently, or 4, depending on what this guy said. The DA needs 12, or Karen Read will never see the inside of a prison cell. They're never getting 12 out of 12.
Okay. So you would be happy with a hung jury again? Is what?
No. But if you told me, would you prefer a hung jury or being convicted for murder and spending the rest of my life in prison? I'm going with a hung jury. But no. So they're not going to be happy with that. But that is, when you look on the scale of relativity, that a hung jury is always a win for the defense, particularly. She's not incarcerated, okay? If she was rotting in jail like many defendants are pending trial, that could be worse, because you're just going to rot in jail for, pending another trial and God knows how long. But, she's not. So I think the result is disappointing for them, but not that disappointing when you consider the alternative.
Next caller. Who's on the phone? Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, Mike.
Hi. Who's calling?
I'm a cop's daughter.
You're a cop's daughter. Okay. And you're on with Attorney Bederow. What do you have for us tonight?
Hi, Attorney Bederow.
Hello.
Everybody's being really patient, and I kind of want to put a scenario out there, and I want to go for judicial immunity. I want to find out how far ahead we can go. First of all, who's the boss, Morrissey or Bev? I think we got them on the hook and they've been reeled in. Let's suppose that the feds had the same information Nick Garino had in the Sandra Birchmore case from day one, from her laptop, like Sean McDonough has alluded.
Okay.
And then, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. We're waiting for you.
All right. I mean, I need help getting to the end with this. Feds,
they clearly had
been working for a year. They watched how the district attorney of the Massachusetts State Police didn't prosecute Matthew Farwell. And Levy steps in and says, we're, charging this guy under the rules that they were able to, the federal rules. And one of the questions that the reporter said, well, what were some other charges we brought in on the state level? And Levy said, by all means, bring them in. Put out some charges if you want. They had all the same information that they did. Why didn't they charge them?
just like Levy said to Bev, I can't see you guys putting this case to trial. We have this exculpatory evidence, and, you know, it's our duty to give this to you. And Morrissey's response was, well, what else you got? You know, we're obligated to give to the client everything. And they're like, you know, we can't give her what you don't, we can't give what we don't have. So I feel like there's like, I'm not a lawyer, but I can just see that there's some information there. I kind of feel like when Levy said you shouldn't bring it to trial, or you should prosecute Farwell and his brother and Healy and everybody else.
I have a
I don't
question
know
for
if I'm
you.
making
Do
any
you, do you know anything more from your father, or is that just, you know?
No, my father's deceased, but
Okay.
you know, he was a good cop.
Okay.
And you know, I'm from the suburbs of Boston, and I grew up with other people's kids, other cops' kids, and I got general senses when my dad would say, "Stay away from them." You know, I mean, I have a lot of insight as far as being a cop's daughter in the fine blue line, and having your brother's back, and being part of that. But what the McAlberts did was they're abusing that blue line, and I personally think they've got Brian Albert. I think I want to know when you think Brian Albert realized they got him, not just for this, but I'm starting to question, what about Pat Rogers?
Oh, we don't know about that stuff. I mean, that's a lot of speculation. Do you want to say anything about any of this, Attorney Bederow?
Just when you were mentioning, you know, the TUI stuff is what you were talking about. Those happen extremely rarely. The idea that a federal prosecutor is going to feel compelled to disclose exculpatory evidence to all parties, but practically speaking to the defense, because they believe what the state prosecutor is doing is an injustice, is another one of those things that you would think would enlighten a state prosecutor, if nothing else, to reevaluate what the hell you're doing. And instead, what you saw them do back then, when they all went back to court after they had gotten these 3,000 and some odd documents, was say that virtually, you know, we've reviewed all of this material and there's virtually no exculpatory evidence here. And if you, at that point, if you don't have alarm bells about what this DA's office is doing, that should have been the moment, because the ARCA report is as exculpatory evidence could possibly get. It is literally a roundabout way of saying that in our expert opinion, and we are, you know, the guys, that although we don't have an opinion about the crime per se, and we're not editorializing, but your factual premise of that vehicle backing into this guy and hitting him and causing his death doesn't add up in two ways. It doesn't add up with the car, and it doesn't add up with the condition of the human body, and with all their expertise in kinetics and all the other stuff. To say that that's not exculpatory is just shocking. You know, the Proctor stuff with his text messages, to say that it's not exculpatory when he's being offered gifts after an arrest and he says, just give it to my wife. Talking about, don't worry about this guy, he's going to be fine. Talking about how we're going to, these are my words, not what he literally said, I'm paraphrasing, but intimidate the medical examiner to give us what we need to boost it up to a murder case. To say that none of that evidence is exculpatory is wrong. And if nothing else, maybe we're finishing this point an hour and a half later, it does make me wonder if that's why they wrote in paragraph 2 of their recent Proctor letter that we're exploring hiring an outside firm to examine the phone and cloud data to ascertain what information is discoverable, because their track record of ascertaining what is discoverable and what is exculpatory certainly leaves a lot to be desired.
Right. Well, it's also exculpatory and discoverable when you're the target of the investigation.
Yeah.
So
That's
there's a separation there between, yeah.
That may be a problem.
Well, I mean, look, I don't know what's going on with him and what his role in any investigation is. But I mean, the fact that your office cleared the Birchmore thing as a suicide relatively quickly, apparently too,
Yeah.
and ignored all these red flags
So-
with the medical examiner and all the other stuff, that would scare the hell out of me if I were, these people.
Definitely. We're gonna take the next call. One question. That's it. Well, one comment, because we gotta go. This is gonna be the final call tonight. Whoever calls in, this is it. Or maybe not. Hold on. The big letdown. No, I think I got him on the line. I think I hit the wrong button. Hold on one second. All right, you're on the show. Who's calling?
Hello,
Hi, you're live on the show. Who's calling?
this is Debbie. How are you guys doing?
Great, Debbie. What do you have a comment or question for us tonight?
I do. We'll have a comment that I want both of your opinions on. Okay, after reading about the Turtle Boy juror number 2, what got me the most was that the jurors said something about a couple of jurors having some strong beliefs about drinking and driving. And I want both of your opinions on that because we know that Karen Read, one of her charges was the OUI. So I'm just wondering, how'd they get on the jury? Because I've been called for jury duty many times every 3 years, and I know that you have the questions asked. Would you be able to, overlook or not be biased about something along those lines? So for me, what struck out the most, and I guess I just want both of you guys' thoughts on it, with the jurors saying that they had strong convictions about someone drinking and driving, them being in the jury themselves.
Well, in all fairness,
Bederow into that, because I don't know.
I didn't see the voir dire process, so I don't even know what the questionnaire, if any, was used by the court. I didn't see the questions or the rules of the game that the lawyers were allowed to ask. I don't know if jurors were asked, presumably, certainly something I would talk about. I assume these lawyers did too on both sides, that you're going to hear that, one of the components of the case involves, a car accident and a lot of drinking of alcohol. And if anyone here has any strong opinions one way or the other, you would certainly flag anyone who's been arrested for DWI or had somebody tragically hurt or killed and as a result of a drunk driver. Obviously that would be someone who would be very anti-drunk driving, those sort of things. I mean, these are all experienced lawyers on both sides, and I would have to assume that some of this came out. But of course, you're also at the mercy of people disclosing things. There are times, for whatever reason, that people don't share things, which is unfortunate. But I don't know how they ended up on the jury or why. There may have been other reasons that either side wanted them. Just without seeing a transcript or a video of jury selection, it's just impossible to know, other than to tell you there's no question that the defense lawyers know how to pick a jury. I mean, they're skilled courtroom advocates and have done this 100 times, and they would recognize how to pick a jury. But I just don't know what happened here.
Excellent. That was a great call. Thank you for calling. We turned the phone off. The phone is off. No more calls. Please don't call me at midnight. Thank you so much, everybody that's called in tonight. I know a lot of people listen to it on the replay. Please do not call me later tonight. It's 9:10 p.m. Eastern time right now. Don't call me at midnight, please. I want to turn my phone back on tonight. All right. I'm going to actually, because I got to read the Venmo and other donations in a few minutes. But I had a good question that came on the super chat right here. Mary, she says, Mark, if you had unlimited funds, how would you defend Karen Read? What experts would you bring in? She's Mary, all the way from Washington State, asked that.
I mean, that really requires more thought than just literally. First of all, do you consult more accident reconstruction people? Sure. See if they line up with what you were told. I would consider a different forensic evaluation. I thought Not that he was a bad witness, but I don't think he was a particularly strong witness as it played out in court. I don't know who the leading forensic cell phone person in the world is, but I mean, if I'm doing this with an unlimited budget, these are the kinds of people that you would bring in. You might hire a team of jury consultants, and maybe they did. I don't know. But for all the stuff with all this press that everyone's concerned about and all the stuff you see going on outside the courthouse when you have an unlimited budget, there's been a few cases over the years we've done jury consultants. My assumption is they probably did. I don't know the answer to that one way or the other, but I would assume that they did that as well. I would want somebody who can really ascertain Apple data a lot, like really dig into that. You may want somebody from Lexus, I'm talking mechanically, to talk about how the taillights work, the substance, that sort of thing. You could go on and on. I mean, if you have a bottomless budget, you can just try to bring in anyone in the world. But in terms of any other big things, that's a good question, but it's one I'd have to think about more, I think.
Excellent. Any final thoughts tonight? Anything that we haven't brought up that you wanted to touch base on?
I wouldn't waste bandwidth in the brain too much about 2020. It's exactly how I thought it would be, just based on how these things work. Seen them before. I really don't watch them now. I only watch them if I'm interested, which is like not often. This one obviously was interesting, but having participated in the recruitment process and doing these shows periodically, you don't have editorial control. It's not written for you. It's not written for people who are following this on a high level daily basis. It's written for randos all across the country there's a really cool case about, a woman who's alleged to have run over her cop boyfriend, and that's what it is. And it went exactly the way it is. It's not going to impact the future trial, I don't think. It was risky to do it, but I think she did well. And, the people who hate her are going to say she was terrible and lying. Nothing's changed, in other words, okay? We're all still going to be hacks if we think that the evidence stinks, and that's just the way it is. But I wouldn't give it a second thought as of, 11:02 on Friday night.
I hope you're right. I hope it doesn't come up later. Just, I don't know. I just heard too much about it this weekend from people who haven't been following it. And it's just like, wow, I just,
Do they live in Norfolk County?
probably not. I'm trying to think of who else I heard from. I don't know. A couple people, I don't know. It's funny because, I got the, a big into the music scene, kind of, my girlfriend and me used to book a lot of shows. So there's a lot of musicians on there.
But,
on the Facebook. And all of a sudden they started, like, the people that haven't been talking about it. And I was just like, read the comments. I was just so sickened.
But when push comes to shove and you're in a courtroom, what do you trust? What, a couple of editors at ABC for a 2-hour show?
Got a point. Yeah. Especially if you're sitting there day after day after day looking at witnesses.
Alan Jackson and David Yannetti having months to prepare, and all the evidence that they have, and all the transcripts from the first trial, and all the advocacy skills they have, and everything about the case in a courtroom. I'm putting my money on that, not because people watched a 2-hour edited by ABC with some dramatic music here and there, and interviewing, understandably so, loved ones who are going to make John O'Keefe, rightfully so, appear very sympathetic. But you're not going to get that at a trial either. You may have some family members who say some things, but you're not going to get that emotional with the music and, this is his shield number that I got tattooed on me, and this is I'm just saying, like, in terms of the emotional. Oh my God.
I know. I mean, that's the stuff just made me so sick. It was
when you take it all take the emotion and all that stuff out of it, trust the skilled lawyers and the evidence available, not the editors of ABC News I wouldn't worry about it in the
You got a
least.
point. You got a point there. I could totally see that. Like, because you watch something 2 hours in September, and then then you're on the jury in January, let's say, and you go through 6 weeks of well, maybe it's only 3 weeks this time. Let's say it's 3 weeks of testimony. You're not even thinking about 2020
No,
at
but
that
it's
point.
also, and not to, beat this to death like maybe we did an hour ago, but so many important things that would come out at a trial. If you just watched the show and didn't know anything about the case, you don't really know about the ARCA stuff. You don't know about the Dighton police officer. You don't really know about the inverted video. You don't know that they claim they found taillight day after day after day. You don't know about the Dighton police officer. You don't know about Brian Albert and Higgins and these butt dials and all these text messages. You know about one Google search because that was kind of a big thing. You don't know about all their inconsistencies. You don't know about the defense expert who said those are dog bites. You don't know about a medical examiner who said the cause of death could have been this, it could have been that, but it wasn't consistent. I mean, there's so much more out there. It's just not to base anything. It's a TV show that is designed to get ratings, and
It's like a soap opera. That's what it reminded me of. General Hospital. I mean, it's just like the most salacious stuff. It wasn't even that good though. Like it could have been so much more salacious if they had actually put some time into it.
It was not a good production, which is, I mean, they had literally no one other than Karen and Alan speaking from anyone in the whole case, if I remember correctly. They literally had no one other than family and friends of John O'Keefe. Those are the only people who talked. And I'm not talking about like court TV anchors and that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about people living through this. And I've never seen one of these shows where they didn't. And that to me is actually interesting because
that's very telling. Someone said they didn't show Colin Knuckles, which is interesting. I mean, you think if they want to go salacious, they would have shown that kid, but they didn't show any of that.
No, they didn't show any of that. I heard they had all kinds of footage of people acting ridiculous outside the pizza shop, yelling at people. They didn't show that. But to me, of all the things they missed that would have been educational on a macro level, again, for the casual viewer, because they were trying to sell, is this a cover up? Is this, are there bad cops in this town? And the defense, after they brought in the Hollywood lawyer, they went to this, the whole way they were selling it. And then they just left out, it's like they left out the fact that, oh, and by the way, last week, a police officer in the, for conduct that occurred in the exact same town and that was investigated by the exact same 3 agencies, that they swept it under the rug and the federal government just dropped the death penalty eligible murder.
Yeah, that's so amazing that they didn't even bring that up as like a prologue or anything, like just an add-on. And like you said, they could change it up to usually like 2 hours before the broadcast.
Absolutely.
Like it's a closed captions. Once the closed captions go on, that's it. But like they have a certain deadline.
They had, what do you call it? What they call them, those standouts that people are always doing. They had the Labor Day standouts. So that, relatively speaking, that was a late edit. And of course, that occurred days after the Sandra Birchmore indictment. So it's certainly not a time thing. They just decided it wasn't worth it. And look, you get for 2 hours, what do you get? Maybe a little more than an hour and 15 minutes of actual airtime, putting commercials and all that. And so you ask yourself, well, what do they deem important to put in? And every second counts, right? And they thought it was important to put in Karen Read curling her hair, getting dressed, showing her nice makeup bag or whatever that thing was, and saying how, I don't want to, I just had this tailor.
My sleeves. Yeah, I gotta fix my sleeves.
I mean, to them, that was worth, 30 seconds of valuable space. So, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, that clearly is fluff at the expense of real interesting things, but that's how they do it.
Yeah, it's just the Aruba stuff, that they spent more time on Aruba than they did the feds. They did ARCA. I mean, that is just, that's what kills
you
me.
could go down every rabbit hole. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they talked about the Aruba people, but they didn't juxtapose that against a lot of the critical people that were in the house weren't even interviewed for almost a year and a half later, but the Aruba people were interviewed a week.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And I guess the last point on this is, if you're going to make a big deal out of the taillight being the powerful evidence, then there are certain things you have to put in there if you're going to be intellectually honest about to the viewer who doesn't know what's going on. And I don't know how. I mean, it's bad enough you leave ARCA out, but how do you not show the video of Karen backing into John O'Keefe's car, show the car rock, and you don't have to get editorial and say, this is what they say caused that, and da-da-da-da-da. And I don't know how you don't, in fundamental fairness, maybe put that in instead of, here I am, like curling my hair. But you know, that's what it is. And maybe, maybe there was a little extra time. I mean, one of the things that stuns me, and I want to say this respectfully, because I'm not one of these people. I'm not going to criticize the O'Keefes at all, even though they do things, perhaps some of them, that are a little questionable, but whatever. Their loved one was killed, and they have a right to feel however they feel. And to me, you know, they can say whatever they want. But, you know, I don't know, all that airtime for, you know, people who were kind of off the scene for 20 years. And it was a little weird. And I'm surprised, like, that there were not other people. There was not somebody from the Boston Police Department to say, that's a guy, when the shit hit the fan and you had to run into a bad scene, that's the guy who had your back, who would put his life on the line. You know, I'm surprised. I mean, on one level, I'm surprised Paul didn't speak, but whatever. That's their choice, I guess. I don't know what it is. It's weird. I don't know why there hasn't been more Boston police support for a fallen brother.
I think they don't buy it.
I don't know. I just thought it odd.
I think they don't buy it. I mean, I think that every whisper on the street that's what we hear. I
mean, they showed, you know, the wake of the funeral, which, you know, that's powerful. Any of those police funerals are really somber with the bagpipes and, you know, the whole bit. But where were they? There wasn't one who would just say in that part of his life what a good guy what he was. And it's surprising to me. I don't know what to make of it. I just thought it was odd. I really think there's no show if she doesn't speak to them, that they just say, we can't do a show here.
Yeah.
Just needed filler time.
That's why I feel like she's got to use that power more and be like, I got to have some control here. If you're going to do a series, you have to get into ARCA. You have to cover ARCA. Like, I just feel like,
if you
throw
know
the weight around a little more.
If you know that the people who don't like her, who are related to the case, are not willing to speak, then I would agree with you that their leverage is much higher, because they are positioned to say, there's no show here.
Yeah. If I don't do it, you got nothing.
Yeah. And, you know, if you want a show where, you know, we're not happy with the way the other one cut this one out, and again, and they'll agree or they won't agree. I mean, there is give and take in these things.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here, Attorney Bederow. You have any other shows upcoming scheduled? I know Melanie Little promoted us tonight, and the Glera. Are you on any of their networks or their shows or any other shows?
At the moment, nothing that jumps out. I can't even think of anything. I don't think so. I mean, I talk to them both frequently.
Yes.
Like them both a lot. But no, as far as I know, this week is, you know, relatively even keel.
Well, maybe we'll get you back this week. Who knows? If anything happens, if anything you want to talk about. You have any other cases going on right now?
Well, there's a big one that I'm not going to talk about, obviously, at the moment, and some other stuff I don't know that it's interesting to people, you know, pending appeals. It's kind of boring. It's important, but it's kind of boring. But we're still getting back into it from post Labor Day. It's a slow build up, but I'll be in Massachusetts for court.
Do we know what date yet? You have any idea?
I do. I believe it is the 26th of September.
So September 26th, Bederow will be in town, Norfolk County. That's going to be interesting.
That'll be interesting.
Wow. Will we able? I mean, I wonder, will we be able to talk to you about that when you're doing it, or should I just hit up Aiden directly?
Courts are public places. You know, things get said in court. That's all public records. Some things get said out of court, but you know,
I'm talking about after court, though. You know, like we do here, the little powwows.
You know, I mean, look, I'm there. I like to talk, so
we'll be watching it. We'll be broadcasting that definitely.
Yeah, well, it's what is it? A couple weeks away, right?
Yeah, a couple weeks. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Good luck. I'm really happy that you're defending. We all are. We're so happy that you jumped on with Turtle Boy and Aiden, because obviously a lot of us want to support Aiden, but as a journalist, as someone who does a show, this affects all of us. Like what they've done this year, they put pressure on people, even people who don't have shows. You know, just random people on Twitter. So thank you for doing this case. Seriously.
It's
like
quite polarizing, apparently. I've had many interesting things said about and to me since then. People are,
I bet.
Yeah, I won't share.
I bet you've never faced any opposition like this before in anything.
No, you know, there was one case actually representing a detective in Brooklyn who was falsely accused of raping a woman that him and his partner that they arrested. It wasn't nearly anything like that. It was something else. But there was a lot of vitriol about, you know, this is during the early stages of Me Too and all of that, and Harvey Weinstein and all of that kind of stuff. And there were a lot of people who, you know, the idea that you would defend someone. Now, it turned out that the witness was completely lying about a lot of this. And, you know, we did what we had to do. You take the abuse, such to the point that, you know, eventually the Brooklyn DA moved to dismiss the rape indictment. And when they had to get the witness a criminal lawyer and had to write a letter asking, you know, for a special prosecutor because they felt they couldn't even call her as a witness because she's going to perjure herself. So the lesson learned from there is, you know, let it play out in court before everybody gets so excited online about knowing what happened and blaming lawyers, journalists, or whoever just for, you know, being scumbags for taking on difficult tasks.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
They always say believe women, which I tend to believe women, but I mean, you kind of have to listen to both sides and see what's going on. You gotta weigh the evidence.
No, you just, I mean, obviously people make allegations in any situation and you vet them, but I don't think anyone should literally be believed because they say something happened. The same way someone should not be disbelieved.
Exactly.
Have evidence. And
you got to have evidence.
And evidence is not, you know, what people allege on shows. It's not tweets that claim this or that. It's, you know, the stuff you see in a courtroom. And that's how that case has to be dealt with.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here, Attorney Bederow.
Sure.
You lit up the phone lines, so you could see the phone lines they're still calling. They're still calling. I might have to actually go into the Google account and turn it off tonight. I don't know. People are like, don't you have a burner account? Yeah, I use a Google number, but I don't want to have to log in and turn it back off. It just
yeah.
Thank you so much, Attorney Bederow.
All right. See ya.
Have a great night.
All right, you too. Bye.
I know. We're the Young Jerks, and I'm complaining. I'm complaining about phone calls. I love you guys. I love that you keep calling. I think it's actually funny. People are still calling us. Let me try to get on my phone without taking a phone call right now. I want to thank everybody who donated tonight. We had a lot of donations on the Super Chat. I saw some Venmo money come in. Now I got the scam callers too. Yeah, I think I'm on the The spammers are now calling us. Look at that scam likely caller. Barbara said $20 as a gift. She says, cheers. Ka-cheers. Thank you so much, Barbara, on the Venmo app. And the other night, Kathy R., she's up in Nahat. She says, keep up the good work, Mike, from your neighborly supporter in Nahat. Thank you so much, Kathy. That was from Venmo. Also had some cash app donations tonight. Thank you so much. Tracy, she says, for a true Boston guy, I love you, Mark Bederow. She said $5. Thank you so much, Tracy. And looks like that's it. Caroline F sent $10 the other night on Wednesday night as well. Thank you so much, Caroline. I think I got them all. I want to make sure I shout out Meredith. She also gave $5 the other night on Wednesday night. She says, thanks, Mike. Love your show. Thank you, everyone who's been donating, supporting, becoming a member. Let me just read this one. Heather says, Mike, I have to say you as a person on your live is commendable. A lot of people like to give credit to Mark. What I want to say is you shine your care about other people and not yourself. Thank you so much, Heather. I'm not that great, though. Just ask my girlfriend. She always says, don't let it go to your head. And I said, you know me. Nothing's going to go to my head, honey. She's like, I know. I just don't want you to change. Then my girlfriend, I love her. She keeps me down. Yeah. She keeps my, I'm just laughing about our private jokes. We have a good time here. I'm reading more of your comments. Here's a comment that just came in from Kelly. She said, do you think Paul O'Keefe got a favor to get off of his DUI charge? Hence why he's going along with Karen and his guilty crew. Who knows? I mean, I don't want to think that. I'm like Mark. I really don't want to criticize this family. I think I have criticized Paul a few times, but I mean, mostly I think he thinks that Karen did it. I mean, I think that's it. I think the guy just believes it. Not everyone looks into details. Not everyone is able to separate themselves. I think that they got hoodwinked by the McAlberts. So I think that's it. I want to appreciate everybody who's been watching and calling and supporting. You know, we're almost at 40,000 subs on YouTube. Pretty amazing. So I want to thank you guys so much for supporting. And I'm looking forward to 40,000. That's going to be amazing little milestone. I want to thank our moderators, Stephanie, MJ, Miss Shorty, and Jennifer. Thank you so much to them. They do a good job. They keep everyone happy. They post the links. They support the show. I really want to thank them. And obviously, I want to thank Mark Bederow. Unfortunately, Mazda Media couldn't be here tonight. We did invite him, but he wasn't able to do a show this weekend. He had, I'm sure, maybe he's got a girl now. Maybe he's dating. Maybe he's off the market. I don't know. Mazda was, or he has a life. Unlike me, he has a life. So we will try. I know people were asking about Mazda. We will try to get Mazda on again. Believe me, I love Mazda. There's JFK in the chat. I want to thank JFK. Congratulations to him. He's doing really good work. I love JFK. Thank you so much. Thank you, Glenn Lake. You're always in the comments. I really appreciate you. Thank you. And my phone is just ringing off the hook tonight. Uh-oh. Yeah, I know. Is it? Do we have the 4Ms as a misses? We don't know that. That could be just a rumor. I'm spreading rumors now. I'm like 2020. I'm acting like 2020. Ladies are going to be upset if Mazda has a girlfriend, I think. Yeah, 40,000. Let's go. Yeah, we need 40,000 subs. I want to get there by the end of the week. Let's get to 40,000 by the end of the week. And I'm just reading. I love reading the comments. I always have a hard time hanging up here because I like to read the chat comments. And we got another new member. I want to thank all the new members tonight, too. We had quite a few new members tonight and people buying and donating the subscriptions. I love that. Thank you so much for everyone who's been doing that tonight. Like Stephanie, one of our mods, she gifted 5 memberships tonight. Joseph Kane also did the same thing. Thank you so much, Joseph and Stephanie. There were some others, too. I really appreciate when people do that. Sheila became a new member. Sheka Sheila, she's been a member for 2 months. Thank you so much. April, she also gifted a Young Jerks membership tonight. Thank you so much. April sings. She actually did 2 of them. Thank you, April. And I feel like I'm missing some others, but I really appreciate everybody who's been kicking in and supporting us. And thank you, Melanie Little and the Galera tonight, too, for sending people over here. All right. I am going to wrap it up. We got to get to 100,000. Yeah, that would be nice, but it's going to take a while. Let's get to 40 first. 40,000 first. All right, everyone. I'm going to go. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon. I'm not sure when, but we'll be definitely Tuesday night. We're going to be broadcasting the Canton Select Board, so I will definitely see you Tuesday night. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night. Jerks for Karen Read, exactly. And we do love Mazza, exactly, 100%. Good night, everyone. We'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your weekend. If there's any left, there's a couple hours left.